Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the very first episode of Close to Broke. My name is Kiran. You'll meet a couple of us who are all degens, I guess you'd say. But today we're heading over to the WSOP. Check it out. It'll be a ton of fun. Oh, by the way, it's all online. Anyways, let's head to Vegas. So we just made it to the spot. Exciting. I'm still lacking a lot of sleep. Haven't fallen asleep yet, so we'll probably get the bags here in a second, get everything set up, and then pretty much call it a night/morning.
My documents.
Welcome back, y'all. So after a wonderful nap, like a solid, I don't even know how many hours that was, but we fell asleep. We are now getting ready to head somewhere to eat. And the good thing about Vegas is you can play while you move. So we'll be playing. So forgive me for cheating, but I do have my phone with notes here. I'm not good enough to remember everything off the top of my head. But let's catch you up to speed. We just finished up the first 30 minutes or so waiting for a 5-10 seat playing 2-5. Personally, I think the 2-5 game at the Bellagio is very hit or miss, at least for me personally. I think the games at the Bellagio and the Aria are, especially at the Aria, are just like riddled with pros and regs. So not that you can't beat the games, just like I have no, I can check my ego at the door. I think they're good enough or as good as me or better in a lot of cases or in some cases. No reason to play in those games. So the 5-10 and the 10-20 are another like really swingy. They can be really good or really bad and reg infested. But the must move I was in was outstanding. So play 2-5, lost $100. Nothing exciting to talk about there, but we're going to get right into the 5-10. We buy into the 5-10 game for $1080, so $1,080, just because my ATM limit's really weird. But anyways, that's what I buy in the game for. First hand, under the gun raises to 40. I'm in middle position with 8-6 of spades. There's two ways to go with this hand, or three ways. You can just fold it, obviously. But in a short-handed game, we're playing like six-handed at this point. I actually probably like 3-betting more and isolating the under the gun and narrowing his range. Even smaller than what it already is. Especially if he's not going to 4-bet, I think I can outplay him post flop. But I do like a 3-bet. In this case, I decided to just call. I think by calling, I allow ranges to stay a little more ambiguous, meaning it's a little harder for me to totally range somebody, but it's harder for me as well to be put on an exact range as well. The whale, which is definitely the mark in the game, he's in the big blind and decides to call. The flop is 10 of spades, 9 of diamonds, 5 of blank, a rainbow card. It checks to me. I decided to bet 90 here. This board for my middle position call definitely hits my range. I can have every top pair. So Jack 10, I can have King 10, Queen 10, Ace 10, all those hands. And pretty much, I mean, you can just do the combos yourself. There's 4 combos of each of those hands. So I have like 16 combos of value, or excuse me, 3 combos, yeah. So I have like 12 combos of value, all top pairs in my range, not including sets and other value hands, and 2 pairs that I can have in my range. So checks to me, I decided to take advantage of that. Checks to me, I've c-bet $90. Both players call. And on the turn, I'm looking for a card that'll add equity to my hand, and I can just kind of ramp up the pressure here. At this point in the game, I had already lost like $300, and I'd say I started the hand with around 80 big blinds. The turn is the 3 of spades, so it's pretty much the gin card in the deck. It's something that's gonna. It's a non-picture card, which is good, which is great, right? No paint, so it doesn't favor my opponent's range too much. And again, this board is still coordinated in my favor. The only person I have to worry about is the whale and the big blind, I think personally. And then when under the gun decides to not c-bet on that flop, I think a lot of his equity is in like second pair, so like 8-9 suited, as well as some overcards, ace queen, ace king, ace jack, those holdings with some backdoor equity that he didn't just he wasn't able to turn. So when that turn card comes, I think it's the best card in the deck for me. It adds flush draws, as well as I still have a gut shot. I decide to bomb it. I jam for around 550, 500 effective. So a pretty huge jam relevant to the size of the pot. Again, that's 270 times, what was that, 390. So I'm jamming 500 into about a $400 pot. My reasoning is that there's just, my SPR is so wonky. It's just so weird that I think that the only play here is just to jam. I want to use I just want to just fold equity. Is just the biggest benefactor I have, the biggest thing I can use to my advantage. And I did so. And after some tanking, both players fold. So again, I think I was good with my read. I think big blind, which was the whale, had some middling pair that he didn't improve on. And I think under the gun, obviously had like ace high or a middle pair at best. The next hand we're going to go over is a hand that I play from the big blind. The whale I was talking about in the aforementioned hand was in the cutoff. He decided to raise it to 60. Small blind calls, and I call. We get to the flop. The flop is king, king, 6. In this spot, again, just plain flow, I decide to check the him. We both check the him, excuse me. He decides to make it 200, so he's betting 200 into a $180 pot about. And I think this is just a really bad bet, in my opinion. It's just a huge bet. With his entire range, I think betting over pot on a flop that's this static is just not the play. But again, he's a whale for a reason, right? And again, here, there's nothing I can do. If I'm behind, I'm way behind. If I'm ahead, I'm significantly ahead, and there's no reason for me to get him off his hand or scare him away. So I decide to check. I decide to just call, excuse me. The turn card comes another king, so we make quads at the Bellagio. Our first game back to live poker. Can't make this up. I check, and he decides to check as well. The river is an interesting card. It's actually the ace. Not that it changes my hand, obviously, but I decide to check, and I check pretty quickly because I was going to bomb the river on almost any card. But when it's the ace, it now changes everything because obviously I think this is a card that it can hit him. There's no way he's not going to value bet, right? And then not only that, but it's a card that I think that there's a high likelihood that he just, decides to bluff at it. Unfortunately, he doesn't take the bait, and he snap checks back with a 6. What I think as I think back on it, if he has an ace, he's going to call almost any bet that I'm putting out there. So if I go pot, he's going to call. So I think by checking, I'm allowing his 6 to get a free showdown. But when I'm betting like 50 to 75% pot, I can merge his calling range from not only what is, ace, an ace, which would be like top boat, right? Not only that, but I can merge it into like middling pairs. So thinking back on it, I think I just snapped decision. I should have thought about it for a little bit and value bet on the river, something like 50 to 60% pot. Next is another big hand. Cutoff makes it 30. The button calls. I raise to 140. 3-bet isolating. Cutoff calls. Button folds. The flop is ace, king, 5, heart, heart. I bet $100 and he calls. The turn is the deuce of spades. I bet $260, and after tanking for a little bit, actually a pretty long time, he shoves for about $800. And again, snap call. If you turn to set, all glory be to God. I don't know, just good for you. If you have pocket fives, again, good for you. I'm just never getting away from it. Pretty ABC hand. He ends up having 5 deuce of clubs, and so luckily, one of the few hands that were just like, he's nearly drawing dead against us, that I guess is good enough for him to just snap jam or jam, on the turn. River's a brick. We win that pot, and that was a good pot for us. It just helped us continue to get on the right path here. And then this is the crazy hand of the day, and I think this is kind of what the entire day, like hitting, this is the climax, this is where it all comes together, and I think where I was just playing at my best. Whale in the cutoff makes it 50. Button calls. I'm in the big blind with pocket fours, 2 black fours. I decide to call. The flop is 10-10-7 rainbow. I check. Whale bets 130, and the button folds, and I decide to call. And I don't think I'm going to go over many hands that include this situation, but he had bet the same number every time on every flop that he c-bet, and he was c-betting 100% of the time. So with that considered, I don't think he's balanced and he's like consciously thinking about that. I just think there's a small sizing tell possibly. But I didn't play enough to like totally know that for certain, but I'd make a good bet that it was the case. I decide to call, like I said. The turn is a 6 of spades. I check, he bets 240. So at this point, I'm constructing his range in the sense of like, there's a turn diamond. So the turn was a 6 of diamonds. So now there's a flush draw. But when he bets 2 streets, his hands now include only overpairs, I think, for value. Some 10s in his range. 7s can never barrel twice here, so a 7, just a pair of 7s. A 6 just doesn't make sense, so his value is pretty capped, I'd say, to jacks plus, and then a few combos of 10s here, and then, the one combo of pocket 7s. So at this point, I believe that he has still a lot of bluffs in his range, that being jack 9, queen 9, all king highs, all ace highs, just from playing with him, and he is the whale of the table. So with all that being considered, I decide to make the call. The river is probably one of the best cards in the deck, I think. It's just offsuit 3. And again, that's one of the few cards that I think don't change much of the strength of my hand, and I don't think it really changes my perceived range of him. It doesn't improve him in any way. So I check to him. He bet 650, and after some thinking, I decide to make the call. And it's that awkward pause when nobody wants to show their hand, and he shows ace jack offsuit with the ace of diamonds, and then only because he severely slow rolled me when I had pocket aces earlier. Like, and I've never been slow rolled like this. I slow rolled the absolute balls out of him, and I slow rolled him. I did the table tap. I said nice hand, fake the throwaway, and then just slam dunked the 4s in his face. Best feeling I've had in poker, I think, ever. There's no fun in being the shithead at the table, but by no means is it cool to slow roll me. Sorry, man. Just if you're watching this, you never are, I think. But yeah, man, you just had it coming, dude. But yeah, slam dunk call. Another one of the hands we're going to go over, and I feel like a lot of these hands are kind of ABC except for the last hand, but I'll talk over the biggest hand of the night. Button makes it 40, and I'll give you a little bit of backstory. I mean, the button was like one of the players that like thinks he's really good at poker, but just like probably isn't at the level he thinks he's at probably. His ranges, like the hands he got the showdown with, just you could just tell like he had no understanding of like good pre-flop ranges. But again, there's nothing wrong with that. That's me every day too, but I can recognize when somebody's like not. I mean, getting in 3-bet pots when you have like 6 deuce of clubs or 5 deuce of clubs, like calling out of position, you get the point. Button makes it 40. I look down at ace king offsuit in the big blind. I make it 150. He thinks about it for a little bit and calls. The flop is, I have king 10 offsuit in the big blind. Ooh, big difference. King 10 offsuit. I just lost a hand that he 3-bet me with last hand, so there's a little dynamic there, I guess. But anyways, he does call. The flop is king 10-7, 2 clubs, super, super wet flop, and I can list the bajillion combos of hands that are drawing as well as made. Queen Jack, any flush draw, 8-9, Ace Jack, Ace Queen. There's a ton of hands here that are going to want to continue on this board. So with that being said, I want to charge every one of those draws the maximum. I'd bet 260 into around a $300 pot. He tanks for what feels like an eternity and decides to re-raise it to $800 or so. And I think at this point, if you have pocket sevens, it is that kind of a day. And if not, I'm just jamming it here. There's just this board is way too wet. Too many action killer cards on the turn, river that can come. So I decided to jam it in. And without too much thinking, he calls it off. And as per usual, I ask him if he wants to run it once or twice. He says that he doesn't know. And I said I always leave it up to the other person. Then he asked me what I want. And I said I just leave it up to the other person. And after a little bit of like this confusion of back and forth and these plexiglasses, we can't even hear ourselves properly. I was like, just run it once. And we don't know what we have at this point. Anyways, the other ones it runs. Turn is a blank. River's a king. So we have the absolute nuts on the river here. We flip it over and he has king 7. So he flopped top and bottom. It's unfortunate. We were playing like 4-handed at the time. So ranges are a little wider, obviously. But what was just an insane turn of events. I don't know if I mentioned it, but that was nearly a 4,900 chip pot. So insane hand. And I'm psyched that I won it. One of the few hands that I had, again, nearly drawing dead to get it all in on the flop is just, it's outstanding. Thank you.
I want to get over to Nacho Daddy, please. Nacho Daddy?
Alrighty. Just wrapped up our session at the, what are we playing? The Bellagio. Played 2-5 and 5-10. Pretty crazy string of events here with MCA, who's got another session in him. I think I'm pretty much done for the trip. I'll probably be playing Warzone. Catch me on the Zone of the Wars. But anyways, we deserve a good dinner.
I'm stuck 250.
Don't worry, dude. That's by the was it 5 seconds for the change of the video, change of scenery. My guy's gonna be up 250. I feel good about it. But anyways, we thank you all for joining us on our first episode of Close to Broke. Hopefully, we'll bring you guys some more episodes as time continues on. As of now, I have a 4-hour drive back to the lovely area of Los Angeles. It's 4:40 in the morning as of now, but I don't want to sit in traffic, and Vegas did me well. So before we leave, we were into the game for $1,080 or so ish, and we were out of the game for $5,025. So that is a profit of, it's like 39 something, 39 something.
I just busted.
No way.
I swear. I had the nastiest string of cards I've ever gotten. I lost with ace king. I lost with nines. I lost with two pair. I lost with everything, bro.
So the profit was 3,945. One of the biggest wins I booked this year for sure because poker's down. Not only that, it's fun to get back to the live poker realm. Don't think I'll be playing much in the future, at least in the close future, the near future. But I'll let you guys know. It's a pleasure as always, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Close to Broke. And hopefully by then you'll meet the rest of the crew.